Enough people are talking about Battlefield again. With the announcement of Battlefield 6, the hype is real. Teasers, leaks, and community discussions are just everywhere. So I thought, why not to go back and see where the things were left off? So I reinstalled Battlefield 2042, and I will be honest, it felt strange launching it again after all of this time. When the game first came out in late 2021, it was one of the most controversial launches in the series. Players were frustrated, critics were harsh, and the community quickly moved on. But that was over 4 years ago. Since then, DICE has been working to improve the game, adding missing features, reworking maps, and even bringing back some fan favorite elements. Now, as Battlefield 6 is getting closer, I want to see, is 2042 finally in a good state, or it's still haunted by its launch? In this video, we will go through what went wrong with Battlefield 2042, from the troubled development to the failed release, and what DICE has done to fix its signs. Let's get started. Let's go back to the very beginning, before Battlefield 2042 was even released. At first, fans were excited. A new Battlefield game with huge maps, crazy weather effects, and next-gen graphics, it sounded great on the paper, but behind the scenes, it was already going wrong. One of the biggest problems was the Frostbite engine, the same engine DICE used for earlier games. But even though they had used it before, developers said it was hard to work with. It wasn't designed for all of the features they want to add in 2042. Things like dynamic weather, destruction, and large-scale multiplayer were difficult to build on top of the Frostbite. This made the whole process slower and more frustrating. Simple features took way more time than they should have. Developers had to spend weeks or months fixing tools instead of actually building the game. And then, in the middle of development, COVID hit. Suddenly, the whole team had to work from home. People didn't have proper equipment. Communication slowed down. A lot of teamwork just didn't happen the way it should. Imagine trying to build a massive multiplayer game while sitting alone at your desk with a laptop. That was reality for a lot of them. On top of that, the development timeline was super short. Resorts says that the team had only about 15 to 18 months to make the game, which is not enough for a huge AAA title. Usually games like that takes 3 to 4 years. So what happened? A lot of content was rushed, and some features were completely cut. There wasn't enough time for proper testing either. Bugs didn't get fixed. New mechanics weren't balanced. Even basic scenes like user experience and weapon handling felt unpolished. All these problems came together like a perfect storm, and sadly, it all showed when the game finally launched. On top of that, a lot of experienced people left the project. According to reports, nearly 20 senior developers quit during production. Some of them said they weren't happy with the creative direction and felt like they couldn't do their jobs properly. That made it even harder to keep things on track. And then there was a confusion about what kind of game Battlefield 2042 was supposed to be. At one point, it was going to be more like a battle royale, something similar to Apex Legends. But later they changed their minds and tried to go back to the classic Battlefield formula. That kind of shift in the middle of development caused delays and design problems. So when we talk about what went wrong, it's not just about bugs or broken features. The truth is, the game never had a strong foundation to begin with. When Battlefield 2042 launched in November 2021, it quickly became one of the most controversial releases in the series. Players encountered numerous bugs and technical issues that severely impacted gameplay. Common problems include hit registration errors, server instability, and game-breaking glitches that made matches frustrating. Beyond technical flaws, the game lacked several features that fans had come to expect. At launch, there was no in-game voice chat, no detailed scoreboard, and limited weapon variety. The traditional class system was replaced with a new specialist system, which many players felt disrupted team dynamic and deviated from the core Battlefield experience. The community's response were straight negative. On Steam, Battlefield 2042 received thousands of negative reviews, making it one of the platform's lowest-rated games at the time. Players expressed their disappointment and frustration across forums and social media, highlighting the game's unfinished state and lack of essential features. In the weeks following the release, the game player count dropped significantly. Many fans returned to previous Battlefield titles or left franchise altogether. The launch of Battlefield 2042 serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of delivering a polished and complete game experience. After the rough launch, DICE didn't give up on Battlefield 2042. They knew the game had big problems, and the community made sure they heard about every single one of them. Over the time, the developers started to roll out updates, and not just small bug fixes. They made real change to how the game felt and played. One of the first things they worked on was the maps. At launch, a lot of maps were too big to open and didn't offer enough cover. Players had to run long distance just to be sniped from somewhere they couldn't even see. So DICE reworked them. They added more objects for cover, changed the layout, and made travel between objectives faster and more fun. Another major update was the return of the class system. Originally, Battlefield 2042 used specialists, characters with unique gadgets and abilities. But many players didn't like that. It made the game feel more like a hero shooter, not a true Battlefield. Eventually, DICE brought back the class roles: Assault, Engineer, Support, and Recon. It was a big step toward the Battlefield we all remember it. They also improved gunplay. At launch, shooting felt weird. Recoil was off and bullet spread was random. With updates, they made aiming tighter, shooting smoother, and overall combat more satisfying. And let's not forget the basics. Scoreboard, it wasn't even there at launch. Voice chat, also missing. Over time, those essential features came back. Not flashy changes, but necessary ones. Slowly, the game started to feel more complete. It didn't become perfect, but it became playable and, in some cases, even enjoyable. These updates didn't happen overnight. It took months, maybe too late for some players, but for those who stuck around, the difference was real. So after all of the updates, how did the community react? Well, it was mixed. Some players appreciate the effort. They saw that the game was improving, slowly but clearly. People who stuck with Battlefield 2042 from the start said it finally felt like a real Battlefield. For them, things like map reworks, better gunplay, and the return of the class system made a big difference. But not everyone was convinced. Many players had already left by the time the big change arrived. They moved on to the other games, or even older Battlefields like Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5. And when they did come back to try 2042 again, some still felt that something was missing. The atmosphere, the house, the sense of team play, it wasn't quite the same. On Steam and Reddit, the reviews started getting better. Not perfect, but better. 2042 slowly climbed out of overwhelmingly negative territory. Still, for some fans, the damage had been already done. The trust was broken. So, after everything we have seen, the hype, the crash, and the slow rebuild, Battlefield 2042 feels like a very different game now. Is it perfect? No. Some of the core design choices still don't sit well with the community, but it's clear that DICE tried, and in some way they succeeded, especially if you will compare it to the launch version. With live service ending after Season 7, this chapter is basically closed. All eyes are now on Battlefield 6. Will DICE learn from the mistakes of 2042, or will history repeat itself? One thing's for sure, as fans, we still care. That's why we keep coming back. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments, did Battlefield 2042 redeem itself for you, or it's too little too late? Don't forget to drop likes, subscribe, and see you on the battlefield.